Good evening, everyone. I'm Lucy Handley, Adult Programs Coordinator at the Ridgefield Library. Welcome. I'm happy to see you all. It's great to be back for this wonderful series. And I'm delighted to introduce Barb Jennis. Barb is Ridgefield's Poet Laureate Emerita, not emeritus. Um, she's appeared widely in literary journals and anthologies and is the creator and moderator of this wonderful poetry series for the Ridgefield Library. Welcome, Barb. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Lucy, and thank you everyone for coming and joining us this evening. I know everything has sort of hit the fan for fall already, so we're glad you could join us. We have 5 incredibly wonderful poets joining us this evening. I just want to give you a little heads up for some other events that are coming our way through Ridgefield Library. On next Tuesday evening, September 9th, there will be a showcase of Poets Laureate from Southwestern Connecticut at the library at 7 p.m. In person, which is always a nice thing. We'll be featuring Donna Dish of Westport, Ira Jo Fisher, current Poet Laureate of Ridgefield, Cheryl Panosian, the new Poet Laureate of Danbury, Laurel Peterson, Poet Laureate Emerita of Norwalk, and also Katie Schneider, who is the wonderful, hilarious new Poet Laureate of Norwalk, and I'll be there as well. So please join us, 7 o'clock. We do ask folks to register if you get a chance on the website, just so we know how many seats to have prepared and how many refreshments to have on hand. How much refreshment? How much? It doesn't matter. Then next month for Poetry on the Path, not Poetry on the Poems from Connecticut's Four Corners, we are featuring Terry Blackhawk, Charlie Chase, Mike O'Leary, River Ripa, and Versatile Poetique. So you'll be getting information about that on various social media places, and also if you're on my email list. So welcome. We want to start the evening with a new Poet Laureate, Tom Lagasse, a lifelong resident of Bristol, Connecticut, now serves as the town's Poet Laureate of Bristol. Besides his work about nature, Bristol and baseball frequently appear in his poetry. His poem Open Field was honored by the National Baseball Poetry Foundation. Tom currently MCs open mic night at the Creative Art Jam Company in Bristol on the last Wednesday of the month. So please check the chat. I'm going to put his full bio in there. I kind of abbreviate it in the version I read. And welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Oh, thanks. When I was first named Poet Laureate in about March, Barb was nice enough to, welcome me and said, would you be interested in doing this? And I said, sure, why not? And then, last month, Barb's like, do you want to do this? And then I was like, oh no, what have I done? But it's really humbling to be part of this. And I'm, really very appreciative of the opportunity. So I have a few poems here for you. This one, it's really was inspired from when I was a young guy, and I was reading Either or by Soren Kierkegaard, and he talked about walking around and being lazy and being idle, and it's stuck with me, and I think it's sort of been how I've tried to live my life. So this is called Late Capitalism. The lawn grows untamed, teeming with clover, which makes the bees happy. Along the border, blackberry brambles continue its coup d'etat, and the house sparrows seek a home there. With silken wings, dragonflies pause on the garden stakes. In this heat, the chipmunks, like squatters, hide beneath the porch for relief. In the corner of retreating shade, I unfold a chair on the cracked cement patio. The distant grumble of delivery trucks and the whine of lawn service mowers swirl, recede into the horizon. I sit, staring into the ruins, jot a few lines, and sip ice-cold lemonade. Once, a man would have called this idleness or laziness. Now it is treason. The second one, so I had about 10 years ago, a life-changing event. Out of the blue, I got released from a job. And the weird thing is that I had a plane ticket to go to the sales meeting out in California already. It was paid for. The company had reimbursed me. So I'm like, well, I'm going to California. So off I went, had a great week there and, just tried to reset myself. So this takes place at the Pacific Ocean and it's called To the Ocean. All memories return to the ocean, the calm and the surge, low tide and high. Some again wash home upon the shore, broken and beaten, bits of sea glass, but more like the lost lobster trap, crab shells, or the backbone of a fish picked clean. Others stay in the deep darkness, still undiscovered, pressed against the ocean's floor. With the lighthouse dark, everything crashes. I am but a name of a ship sunk off the coast where locals point to the spot on the horizon and remember until they disappear into the astringent salt water. These last two are poems that I wrote this past in August. I was really feeling, the end of the summer and the weight of everything, just everything. And just a little note here, the Trail of Tears is a bean that I grew in my garden this year, and that is the natives when they were getting pushed out, that was the bean that was helping keep them alive. So this one is called What If? On a late August Saturday afternoon, we lament the lingering summer has now disappeared as we watch the ruby-throated hummingbirds flit around the last Trail of Tears blossoms before they hover to sip the nectar. Did we love these days enough to appreciate the pleasure in rubbing the condensation from margarita glasses on our foreheads, beaded with sweat, or when the last rays of sunlight collapsed into a horizontal rainbow, which quietly succumbed to the first stars, sparks of fireflies? Would we love it more if we knew it would be our last? All right. So I usually joke that my imagination goes about as far as my backyard. So there's some repetition even in these that I selected. This one is called Direct Conversation. The summer is nearly depleted without a day at the beach, watching a sunset drift to sleep, or a night pondering the stars. The first leaves have been singed with fire. Soon they will all be burning. Apples blush pink and red, pumpkins orange into dusky suns, and the burnt lawn resurrects into emerald. The joy of children echoes throughout the neighborhood when they get released from the school bus. Their feral selves are reclaimed and exercised. Wait. What is it that I am trying to say to you, to me, to us, as another day winds down and the unfulfilled to-do list wrinkles in our aging hands? The subjects we've studied to near perfection in order to be held with esteem at the top of the class, and the worrisome nights waiting for finals have disappeared like birthdays. No one will be checking our transcripts or passports as we leave this world. No one will count the hours spent meeting nonsensical work deadlines, a career path we steered into the rocks, or worrying about money like an accountant at tax time. The ledger is nearly complete. What we owe not to the trickster's religious establishment, a duplicitous government, or the insatiable appetite of capitalism. Our debt is to ourselves for failing to heed our heart's call, which wanted only the sanctity of art and love, those timeless waters under the sway of a harvest moon. All right. And the last one is called Song. Last summer, I was a writer in residence at the Edward Way Teal House, which was in East Hampton, Connecticut. For those of you unfamiliar, it's run by the Audubon Society. You go spend a week in his house, and it was life-changing. I don't think I'm even sitting here without that. So this is called Song. Like gods, let's sing everything into existence, each a melody, a testament, a universal paean to living, loving, brutality, and dying. Leaves and grasses rustle, the pond taps against the edge, bullfrogs belch, sunset settles into summer's slow darkness. Not ready for sleep, our night voices rise. Crickets chirp their orchestra of desire. That's it.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. Those are lovely, lovely songs.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I love the Did We Love These Days Enough? Oh my gosh, that caught me in the throat. Because yeah, do we?
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Now, you say you lived all your life in Bristol, right?
Yes, I made it from one side of town to the other. That's been my big move.
Wow. So you've seen a lot of changes, I'm sure.
Yes.
There in Connecticut. Well,
Yeah.
Again, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Catherine DeNunzio. Catherine is the author of Enough Like Bone to Build On, which was published by Antrim House in 2022. Her poems have appeared in a variety of journals and anthologies, including the Connecticut Literary Anthology, Connecticut River Review, Scapegoat Review, and Waking Up to the Earth, Connecticut Poets in a Time of Global Climate Crisis. So if you would, please welcome Catherine.
Thank you, Barb. I'm happy to be here. Thank you. The first poem considers, among other things, one of the unintended consequences of our shift away from being an agrarian society. Another thing I'd want you to know is that the poem references my uncle's vocal and motor tics. His were typical Tourette's tics, including blinking, shoulder shrugging, and throat clearing. This is the snake skin. Raised like a scar, my grandfather's name girdles the century-old milk bottle I am holding. Inside, a snakeskin. In its day, the bottle held milk from his cows. Late summers, the family men moved bales from field to wagon to hayloft. With relentless drive and strength born of strength used, my uncle tossed the bales as a child might toss blocks into a storage box. As a boy, his vocal and motor tics meant he could not concentrate in school. Some afternoons, he'd be sent home. But in the field and barn, with the workhorses and the cows, all that neural firing was channeled. Is it true the snakeskin came from the barn and that he found it on a rafter in the loft? True, partly true. Stories get passed on. Maybe just their bones matter anyway, and the directions encoded in the genes. So we tell the stories that bring my uncle back to us. So my sons tick too. Harder these days for such boys coiled with itch and energy, with no set way to wriggle out of their skins. This one. In our younger days, I think some of us from my generation swore we would never say young people today. But I have found myself noticing and thinking about some of the differences in our points of view. And this is called baby gift. On my baptismal day, my godparents gave me a sterling silver cup on which my monogram and date of birth are still decipherable. Its dimpled bottom seems to suggest its smithy-eased body to base, the way a seamstress joins a full skirt to a bodice. Instead, it documents how, clutching the cup in my fat fist, I banged it on my wooden high chair tray. Now young parents want to receive soothing sound machines for sleep or feeding bowls with suction cups for bottoms. After they and their children are gone, what useful object made to last will someone hold while thinking, she once held what I am holding now? I was asked once at a reading who or what had given me permission to become a writer. And that is a question I will always be grateful for. And this is the poem that I wrote afterwards, Permission, for my father. Wood-flecked pants, damp t-shirt, my father invited me outside, past my mother's clothesline and sheltered by trees, a perfect stump, cushioned by greens. Look, he said, this is for you, a little toadstool of your own. When you want to, you can sit on it and think. Scent of birch sap, slight breeze, crisp shadows, light shimmering through trees. But most of all, revelation. What I was prone to was real, belonged to me. This is at the Dairy Queen, 1972. It happened as we sat with melting cones in the shade of an aging oak, talking about the boys we'd been meeting after dark. Not far away, a woman shrieked, waving her arms wildly at something black hovering, then diving at her head. Over and over, it hovered and dove. We watched from a distance. You worked that summer counting shorebird eggs along the Hammonasset marshes. I was a counselor at the local nature camp. We knew this with certainty. Her attacker was a bat. Your hair is white now, mine gray. Back then, we'd not yet known predacious men or the anguish of losing loved ones, nor had we foreseen failed pregnancies, malignant cells, a deadly virus circling the earth. At 16, we could see but could not know that woman's terror, how powerless she was over something so intentional, scythe-like, relentless. Let's see. The next one is called The Couple. For a moment in the early morning light, I did not recognize them. Their form merely suggested, their words indiscernible. Yet as they murmured, their exchange undulating like a slip hanging by an open window, I became pure consciousness, my synapses undistracted by the impulse toward language, my mind freed from the burden of reasoning, disconnected from the turmoil looming just beyond my threshold. I have always loved quiet scenes of spousal life in foreign language films. On a stage of domesticity, dialogue quotidian, instinctive, evocative, and within me, a longing untranslatable by subtitles on a screen. But this couple this morning, they were you and I understood that with you, what I yearned for would always be available, were I not I, were this not earth. Grief researchers, this probably doesn't come as any surprise, but they have say and have documented that grief is cumulative, and that an especially significant loss can cause long forgotten losses, smaller ones, to surface. This is called wrestling. No shade of thread quite right for the boho cotton top I'm mending. I can't remember which my mother taught me as a girl. Go lighter or go darker. But since her death, other losses are returning. I wish I'd kept the block print smock I wore the summer I turned 17, its flowering vines as seductive as its vivid red, velvety indigo, rich olive. And suddenly I become that girl again, and I want the boy from them then again, and the back seat that we used. But in my bed tonight, I will turn to wrap around my husband as he sleeps and reach for his top wrist, as I have done for half my life. A perfect one-on-one, the move familiar from all those years in bleachers, our sons on mats before us, wrestling, the oldest sport. I'll close with something a little bit lighter. This is Calendar Girl, and this is for Lou. Like me, others might recognize your intellect, incisive and relentless. They too might sense your sweetness, and they, like me, might be drawn to your square shoulders and brown eyes. But only I am witness to your latest obsessions. Your discovery, for example, of fresh fruit rather than preserves on your peanut butter toast, followed by your treatise on berries versus stone fruits, and your reveries on the taste of each as compared with that of their jam counterparts. And only I, freshly showered and having dropped my wet towel into the washer, only I, having grabbed a cold, ripe watermelon from the fridge beside it, the largest, roundest one we've had this season, only I, upon entering the kitchen naked, holding the specimen like a trophy, only I get your applause, followed by, well, there's a farm calendar photo. Thank you.
Oh, that was it?
I
That
thought
was
that was
wonderful. Oh,
okay.
wonderful, Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, the metaphor of the snake skin and a teenage boy wrestling in their own skin is just mind blowing. But boy, and I just have to say the one about the bat and the woman, powerless over something so relentless, so intentional. I love that word, intentional. It's beautiful.
Thank
Very
you.
powerful. Well, thank you. By the way, if you would like to put comments in the chat, and I love people are hitting the heart button and things like that, but feel free to leave comments. The poets can look at them afterwards, and it's always nice to have people, some record of what people thought of your work. So feel free to use that. Okay, so next we have Ciarnan Berry. Kieran, I'm sorry. Kieran, correct?
Kieran, yeah.
I'm so sorry. Ciarnan Berry.
Okay.
Ciarnan was born in Dublin and grew up in Connemara and Donegal. You can tell I long to go to Ireland, so I'm a little jealous. He is the author of 4 collections of poetry, States, Liner Notes, The Dead Zoo, and The Sphere of Birds, all published by the Gallery Press. His work has received many accolades, and please check the chat because they're listed there, including 2 Pushcart Prizes. Ciarnan co-directs the creative writing program at Trinity College, and he just started back today. So welcome, Ciarnan. Thank you for being here. You must be kind of pooped.
Yeah, and I had my son, I'm an assistant coach for my son's soccer team, so we had soccer practice until 6. So yeah, I'm a little tired, but very glad to be here and very glad to be sort of listening to everybody. I'm going to read a few poems that sort of are Hartford centered, that are in my most recent book, States. And the first one is about the circus fire in 1944. And one of the things that sort of, when I started to read up on it, that was really interesting to me were the names of all these performers that were clearly really well known in 1944, but have probably been forgotten since then. So the poem's called Circus, Fire. The big cat act was over, and the great Wallendas were getting ready to work on the high wire. Not yet Arthur Cognac and his Hungarian riders. Not yet Lou Jacobs emerging from the cramped quarters of his clown car. And let's say you and I have just wandered in from the midway with a red balloon, a monkey sewn from rabbit fur. Let's say the circus has arrived a day late from Providence, the big top coated with paraffin wax to keep out the rain. Not yet the cigarette dropped outside the men's toilets, or the match struck by a razorback livid over late pay, or the schizophrenic who would confess later to setting the blaze at the behest of a ghost in a headdress. Not yet the stench of burning flesh in this another century of needless death, setting off the vet who remembers Okinawa, where an enemy soldier burns at the end of a flamethrower. Instead, we're in the year of Liz Taylor and National Velvet and Bing Crosby asking, would you like to swing on us? And my father, a year after this not yet fire, slipping out between the legs of his mother, which means, of course, we can't really be there in the third row of the grandstand, waiting for Emmett Kelly to hang his tattered coat on the tightrope and beat himself at a game of solitaire, for Dolly Copeland to slip from her slop shoes on the sawdust track that circles those three rings before taking to the air. Yet there we are among the families of those men from Travelers Insurance and Royal Typewriter, and by the bleachers, the ex-servicemen in their wheelchairs. All of us come to see the elephants, which in the parlance of the place means to lose your innocence. Not yet the mahouts afloat on their howdahs, the horses testing the length of their lunge lines, and Kelly's weary Willie chewing a cabbage on the sidelines or with a broom sweeping up the spotlight. Not yet my father's father, come back from Egypt and the war with a deep tan. My father's father back from the south of France singing It's a Long Way to Tipperary or We'll Meet Again. Not yet, but soon, Carl Wallenda in San Juan falling to his death between the penthouse suites of the Condado and the Flamboyant. And the heat that pops your red balloon, the heat like wasp stings on the skin as the tent takes flame like a zeppelin over the city of our dreams. And the fire like the last blast of a sunset, and the fire like the onset of a full moon. This next poem takes place in the parking garage at Hartford Hospital, of all places. On the day after my younger son Angus was born, so I'm sort of looking for a parking space and heading back to the hospital to sort of to bring the things that we needed to kind of to bring him home in, so his clothes and diapers and stuff. And I had on the radio, so it's kind of going in and out, and the reception, NPR, where Terry Gross was talking to Elizabeth Colbert, the author of like The Sixth Extinction and those various books about sort of climate change and climate catastrophe. And there's also a painting in the poem by Bruegel the Elder called Winter Landscape. Winter Landscape with Skaters and Bird Trap. It's from 1565. This one's called Fresh Air. The bats drop to the cave floor like a dirty wash, and in the sea it gets harder to make a shell. As my foot hovers between the brake and gas pedal in the parking garage at Hartford Hospital, where depending on where the car is between floors, it's either static on the radio or NPR. Static on the radio or NPR, and you've been with us only a few hours here in New England's rising star, where the snow falls on the South End and Frog Hollow as Terry Gross talks to Elizabeth Colbert. It whites out the white lines down the middle of the road. It frosts, then sugarcoats the frozen pond in the park named for Colonel Albert Pope, while guest and host discuss a brown tree snake in Guam that has no enemies, a yellow frog in Panama that was a lucky charm. And the children, who didn't especially want it to happen, still skating at the edge of Auden's poem. And in that painting by Bruegel the elder, upright forever on their skates of bone, away they go between the starlings and the house sparrows, and those bird traps that, according to the allegory some see, are baits of the devil for the careless soul. I brought a bag of diapers and a change of clothes, the car seat in which we'll take you home through the snow that won't take no for an answer, the snow writing its own erasure poem. The signal comes back and then it goes. This is fresh air, I'm Terry Gross. The meteorologist says the weather calls for, as if the weather has a mind of its own. And I wonder, heir to all we are and what little we possess, what we've signed you up for, bringing you here. Everything bathed in this pinkish glow, like my printout. The ink cartridge was low, of that Flemish village of sky and ice and snow, that frozen river from 500 years ago. Hats and scarves, spinning tops and hockey sticks, and how the more I look, the more I start to see you in the scene, as that boy raising the leg he's pushed off with, maybe, or the one who huffs and puffs after a wayward puck. I'm your father, Angus, looking for an empty spot, and shit out of luck, as on your mother's arm the nurse inflates a pressure cuff, and the orderly carries a cake to your room, where you've just woken up. Congratulations, written in green cursive on the buttercream, which looks just like this snow burying everything as we get lost in the Anthropocene.
Mm.
So this is a very tentative Hartford connection. It's a poem about the making of the movie Jaws, which actually has its 50th anniversary this summer. Um, and the tentative Hartford connection is that if you remember the scene around the campfire before the first, there's a bunch of teenagers around the campfire. It's before the first sort of a young woman gets killed by the shark. And she's running across the beach, and this sort of blonde-haired, curly-haired boy sort of takes off after her and tells her that he goes to Trinity College, um, which is where I teach. I tried to fit that into the poem, but I couldn't find a way to fit it in. And the poem's mostly about, if you know the story of the making of Jaws, it was supposed to be made in a very different way, but the shark that they made didn't work. So they had to sort of create the sort of the anticipation around the appearance of the shark, based on the fact that they couldn't really get the shark to do the things that they hoped it was going to do. So that's one of the things going on in the poem. The other thing is, as Barbara said, when I was about 4, my family moved from the outskirts of Dublin to Connemara, a tiny town with a population of 200, where my father went to work in a fish farm. And so I got to hang out in boats with him a lot, which was really a wonderful way to spend a part of my childhood. This is called The Making of Jaws. Not the tank behind the studio this time. Instead, the open water of the sound. The script still being written as the scenes are filmed, and no one, it seems, ready to get us out of this one. Not the aquaphobic police chief or the sleazeball mayor who in a summer town worries over summer dollars. The soundtrack oscillates between E and F until the D bites down and the camera skirts the surface of the water so that it feels as if we're about to drown. Richard Dreyfuss looks so much like my father the year he worked at the fish farm. I untie the dinghy from the quay and we splutter out into the sea again. I cut the belly of this Carcharodon Carcharius open and find not just these half-digested tommycots and this crushed can of Narragansett, but also John Locke's definition of consciousness as the perception of what passes in a man's own mind, and the psychiatrist, later to perish in Auschwitz, who defines anxiety as this dark and distressing feeling of expectation. The lobster writhes in its buoy-marked trap. In their ringed enclosure, the salmon flash their bellies of chainmail, and something reaches up for us, its hand of vulcanized rubber, as in Creature from the Black Lagoon. Farewell and adieu to you, fair Spanish ladies. Robert Shaw sings as the orca putters out, off and away. It's a nod to the Pequod and Ahab's fate. As with the snare-shaped jawbone through which the scene is filmed, it's a means of telling us he won't be coming home. So let's forget the shark, its stiff jaws and crooked teeth that we don't get to see until at least an hour in. It's the anticipation of the thing, and not the thing itself, that ends up being the making of the film. The sea takes her own, as someone must have said way back in that way back when the tide belched up a fisherman who'd never learned to swim. I cut the outboard and drift back into it again. How the local shopkeeper ran his Doberman beside his blue sedan, and the mobile butcher carried to our kitchen door a bucket of bull's blood, a Christmas gift for a loyal customer. I cut the outboard and raised from the cutting room floor that scene where in an almost empty theater, Shaw's character laughs his way through a matinee showing of John Huston's take on Melville's tale. And something enters the swim of the right brain that's way more sinister than the animatronic creature the crew nicknamed Bruce, that on the first day of the shoot sinks to the bottom of the bay. I'll finish off with a very short poem. It's very simple. It's about sitting on a sofa in the 70s, watching Evel Knievel do one of his jumps on little black and white TV with rabbit ears, if you remember those. Evel Knievel. Although the TV's black and white, it's in color I see. My 10-year-old self on the edge of the corduroy settee is coming to you live from where memory yields to myth. You know that Colosseum, you know that cow palace in which a man who is part Elvis and part Icarus will jump a row of matchbox cars and Pepsi trucks. Cutting the air in half on the Harley or Triumph, he's revving on the takeoff ramp, ready to jump. In Kellogg, Idaho, let's say, or Portland, Oregon, where his cape, spangled with stars, flaps in the wind. As in a sudden rush of gears, the descent begins that will or won't propel him across that Grand Canyon. The stadium, all flashbulbs, as he cuts a crooked line, trying to cross, like me, between 2 points in time. Thank you all for listening.
Wonderful. Oh, a man who is part Elvis and part Icarus. Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Your reading is beautiful too. I have to say, for all of our poets this evening, thank you for your beautiful reading voices. It's just been a real pleasure to listen. So, wow. So, okay. We next up have a wonderful poet who I've had the pleasure to read for on one occasion. Karen Warinsky has published poetry since 2011. She is the author of 4 collections, most recently Beauty and Ashes from Kelsey Books. A former finalist in the Montreal International Poetry Contest, Karen coordinates spoken word events under the name Poets at Large and currently holds readings at Roseland Park in Woodstock and the Vanilla Bean Cafe in Pomfret, Connecticut. So please welcome Karen Warinsky.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to be reading tonight from 2 books. First, I want to start with one from this fine anthology. I hope you can see it. It's called Sunflowers Rising. I'm not sure what's going on with my camera tonight. If maybe you've heard of it, raise your hand if you heard about this. I decided to submit a poem and it was accepted. This anthology contains work from Ukrainian and US poets, and all the proceeds in the Ukraine. So if you want to find this, I know it's on Amazon. I don't know where else you might get it. My piece from it is called Disharmonic Convergence, Another Day on Facebook. They reached through the screen toward me, the Korean woman mourning the loss of that one precious life, the one she carried in her womb, the one hoped for, planned for, who couldn't live on breath. The Ukrainian soldier from Odessa, vital, worried, his future muddy and mired like the Donbass. A poet from Bangladesh sounding a cry against the depravity of child marriage. Palestinians and Israelis, both scrolling and posting their way through images none can fathom. And suddenly I am Hecate, standing at a crossroads, guiding people through a tough intersection, typing comments of solace. The world shakes beneath our feet. We reach through our monitors, share our collective wounds, try to cope with the insanity around us, 1,000 things that don't make sense, holding out for peace and understanding, connected by our digital humanity. So that's from Sunflowers Rising. I have a mix of political and personal, and it's not going to be all heavy, I hope. I'm going to shift to my new book, Beauty and Ashes, from Kelsey Books. And this book is organized by the seasons, but it starts in summer and it ends in spring because spring is the time of hope. And I always like to end my readings with hope, and I thought that would be a nice way to wrap up the book. I've lived in Connecticut for the past 38 years, but I grew up in Illinois in a little farm town about 60 miles west of Chicago. And, I played in cornfields as a kid. I worked in cornfields as a teenager. And this piece is partly inspired by the Illinois landscape. It's called Holier. Nothing holier than a cornfield. Stalks spire straight, make their green announcement of heaven above. Quiet sanctuary for children in summer, when the field's heart becomes a hidden fort, protecting wishes whispered on mashed leaves. Nothing lovelier than a patch of morning glories, tissue paper faces gently wafting, white and lavender, deep and mysterious, shutting into a tight twist of silk in the afternoon shade. Nothing quicker than a chipmunk, monk that he is, scurrying over a stone wall, seeking privacy and solace. Nothing finer than a baby's little fingers or a smile from someone who hated you yesterday. Thank you. The next poem I'm going to read is from a childhood memory, and the word you need to know is carillon, and I bet most of you know that word. And a carillon is it's bells in a tower that's played with a mechanism like a player piano. The fanciest word I knew as a child was carillon, 3 syllables of embodied melody, and my mother would say it as if she'd known it all her life, but it wasn't true because she said ain't and get and fur, same as all the moms from the South, and she didn't know about Alfonso the Wise or 13th century Flanders, where the instrument was created, though she had been out to California once as a child and even took a trip to Ohio to see her sister. She learned it at church when the handsome preacher explained how they needed to finish raising money to buy one. Carillon, beautiful bells that would play the first 2 verses of hymns at noon and at 5 o'clock. Sometimes at noon, we ignored the lilting sounds, but at 5 o'clock, it was a signal, a warning to come home. Supper cooking, dads returning from their day's work, expectant of small, smiling faces and a hot meal, though we children didn't rush back till the last note of the last verse had chimed. Thank you. This next piece is a fall poem. I appreciate fall, and this is a fall poem, but it's titled Keeping Summer. Yes, yes, it's the first day of fall, but I am not rushing to put out pumpkins, slap a leafy orange garland around my door, drink pumpkin ale. Why the hurry? The recollective cold and dreary dark days are coming. Can't we just use our sense and willpower to keep the fawns, the green soft grass, the shoeless, fleeceless summer 1 month more? I'll willingly kill the mosquitoes, sweep up those prompt, premature fallen leaves from the steps the deck, the end of the driveway, brush them off my geraniums, my potted ivy, just to see sweet Saul's face shining back at me, his loyalist lover. I want my windows open, my ceiling fan turning, humming its quiet refrain, restraining me from worry, from fear, keeping the mood light, the summer sunset in the sky. But you can't stop fall. And I don't know if I need to adjust that or not. There we go. You can't stop fall. This next piece was first published on the Rye Whiskey Review, and it's called Watching Falling Leaves While Drinking Coffee in My Car. Can't get enough of the crazy colors, the deep hues, the suddenly shock to pale and neon yellows and greens, all that amber and peach litter fall, dead quiet on the ground, waiting to mulch, absorb the silent lesson. But I hadn't been out all day, so drove to the bank, got gas, then the drive-through for coffee and, yes, a donut. Went to a favorite parking lot near a brook where the trees are screaming in orange, pink, maroon, refusing to go quietly, and watched one by one the abscission, the cutting off, as the branches pinched closed, the trees firmly deciding they will live another year, pushing out what's done, like an expired friendship, a dead love. Thank you. This next one is called Compounding Disasters. I hope you find it a little humorous and ironic. The headline said Compounding Disasters, and instead of clicking it to life in my inbox, I thought, shouldn't I have that coffee first? So I grabbed a cup and went to my daily horoscope, which mostly rang true, though it said in part, you might figure out a way to handle a problem that's been weighing you down. And I knew that wasn't true because I'd already decided to let that problem die a slow garden death. You know, first the frost, then the shriveling from the frost, then a good garden ghosting till spring when maybe you'll set foot on that plot again. Compounding disasters. I think I'll work on some compounding pleasures. Take a walk, read a book, try a new wine, pet the cat, make and eat a nacho plate, text a friend, do we still call? Find that stash of chocolate, down some, get this crowd to smile, and maybe make some holy laughter. Let's do a round for Ram Dass. Maybe he'll hear us in heaven. That's a good one to do when you're alive. I'm going to get serious here for a minute. I've been writing about the situation in Gaza since the beginning in 2023. And perhaps by now, you've all heard of this young Palestinian journalist. Her name is Bisan Auda, and she has been faithfully making videos and posting, her experience as she's living through it. And this was first published on the New Verse News. It's called From the Dark. A voice from the dark speaks quietly to the living light, a soft, devastated voice, without tears or trembling, because the woman of this voice has seen too much traveling through this beast's belly for more than a year, and now knows what humankind can do to children, to hospitals full of elderly, ill, injured people, to entire towns, knows the outcome of bombs, the smell of death and garbage. The world is complicit in this. No one must be silent in this, she says. She expects nothing now after her year of messages cast upon the online sea, her Emmy, her fame, but wishes the world would march to the borders of Gaza, call out, shout, pray, make a presence that would stop the madness. What next? Bisan asks. What next? All right. And I'm going to end with a little lighter piece. I read this at the Beat Fest last weekend. They seemed to like it. And it's called Tonight is a Poem. Because we're here, feeling good, safe for the moment, money in our pockets, beer on the table, breathing in, breathing out, smiling in your eyes, hugging when I can, brushing up to let you know the caring is killing me, and there's nothing I can do except feel all this love, desire this friendship, hope it stays intact. Forget tomorrow, her suitcase of problems and her trippy, drippy doubts, because tonight is a poem and I want it to write all over me. Thank you, everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karen. What a wonderful diversity. So it's fun to have a mixture of happy and serious. So thank you very much. You know, I have to say, a poem you read at Vanilla Bean years ago about how there used to be so many more insects that hit the windshield. Do you remember that poem?
Oh,
I love
yeah,
it.
that's,
I still
oh, you like that?
I love that poem.
I'm not thinking of the name of it right now, but it's from the Sunrise Ruby. Yeah, I'll dig it out in a minute for you.
Oh boy. And
Thank you.
Kieran, I have to ask you, what was the bucket of bull's blood for?
It was so it wasn't used, but
Oh, well,
so basically where we lived there was no sort of butcher, but there was a mobile butcher, so he drove around in a van and sort of sold meat house to house. But if you were a good customer, he would give you a bucket of bull's blood at Christmas with the idea that you would make like sort of a blood sausage with it, like black pudding or
yeah,
like yeah.
I wondered about
My mother still talks about that and thinks it's hilarious.
that. Yeah,
Such a
not
strange,
exactly.
such a strange present.
I was going to say, not exactly on everyone's Christmas list, is
Right. Yeah.
it? Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Barb, I'll just tell you the name of that poem is Windshield Phenomena.
That's great.
And it was based on a science article that I read,
Yeah.
how we have fewer bugs. And do you remember as a kid, like, sometimes your dad would have to stop the car and wipe the windshield off. So
Yep,
you don't do
exactly.
that anymore.
Nope, it's sad but true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay, so our last poet for this evening, Kayshawn Taylor, is a writer and educator based in Connecticut. His full-length poetry collection, Subhuman, was released by Wayfarer Books in March of this year. His poetry, fiction, and essays are published widely in journals and magazines. Kayshawn currently teaches with Gotham Writers Workshop, and please do check out his full bio in the chat. Welcome, Kayshawn.
Thank you so much, guys. Can everyone hear me? Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and thank you, Barb, for inviting me. All of you guys are so hard to follow. You guys are so good. So I'm gonna read a couple poems from my book, Subhuman, and a couple new poems that I've been working on. So I'm gonna start with this one called Hot Water Blues. Why argue with the old man who left the hose connected to the mop sink running, running, running? No guarantees or icy promises. The hot water might be gone forever. My counselors preach forgiveness, how essential it is for healing. Don't you think, they counsel, frigid liquid might mend the crack bifurcating your heart, or, at the very least, learn you a gelid lesson in culpability and humility? The clenched fist of an incense lover, the shivery strip search by the hand of law, the cool kiss from the barrel of a gun, or the arctic drip of dry, dry water after a long day of prisoning. Always take what you can get. My counselors, the best I can get. When the polar shock subsides, when my frosty breath returns and I feel sub-zero and invigorated, maybe I will consider chilly forgiveness. Maybe I can start, however small, with the bastard who jacked the hot water. And then I actually haven't read that one out loud or at a reading before, so I'm just trying out some new poems that I haven't read out loud. So this next one is called Sad Fruit. Apples here taste so bitter, copper, like chewing a battery or a secret lover's bottom lip. Angry apples, determined to, at the same time, nourish and punish. I imagine the destitute orchard from which they come, the desperate trees on which they grow, how the soil might taste if I consumed a moist, grainy handful, broke my teeth on stones and the bones of small animals cursed to rest in the eldritch pasture. Would my roots wither, become petrified tendrils, arms fingering for loamy sustenance? Would my trunk grow strong, a redoubtable oaken bulwark, or would it fail and fall like the wall in its sole task? Could my leaves withstand the gale, the fusillade of rain, the sunshine joy and 2 a.m. doom of summer? My bark yearns to be hugged before nuclear autumn, before small animals shelter and the birds ride prevailing winds south. If there was a little love, the raven smoke from these fires which choke and erase might give birth to new beginnings, a phoenix resurrection for the sad fruit I give to the sad world. It is true, our roots dictate our growth, but even those can be excavated, then replanted. It is our seeds which float the lightest breeze that roam farther than our dying, browning leaves and leave flavors, bitter or sweet, on the puckered lips of lives we never come close to kissing. Thank you guys. Is the audio okay? Okay. Um, so yeah, I really haven't read those poems before. I was kind of trying them out, so thank you guys for listening to those. And then I'm gonna read a couple new poems that I've been working on. Two of them are going to be published later this year, maybe next month, I think I would have to check, in Midway Journal. Um, and these are kind of just about navigating life after, so I was formerly incarcerated. So these poems have been about kind of navigating life, with new eyes and, just, not being in prison. So, the first one is called The Thing About Reentry. 1.5 degrees ago, I sought supplementary employment to fund Death Wish extracurriculars. You'll get bored, said the manager over the phone, overqualified. Despite white-hot yearning for endangering my life, I, like a brown goldfish in a plastic bowl, too aware of its spherical condition, could not contain the exponential need to expand into myself, then outward for too long. 1.5 degrees later, bars and dorms and cell blocks in the rear view growing more distant with each passing of the second hand, like an old hometown where memories hurt, the state is quick to remind me, through compacts with partners, of my place in their world right now. The dumpster fire parts of my past matter like back taxes. My desire to give back to the sick and suffering with the same tired, repentant hands that reluctantly snatched a soul from its innocent brown body must be tempered for the time being. And I am okay with that. Try again in 3 years when my name is off paper, distended with education, bloated from grief, passion. Thank you guys. And then I have my friend, so this I wrote this poem. I went to go hang out with one of my friends and we met somewhere and he somehow I got there before him and he like pulled up like right as I was pulling up and we were on the phone. He was like, your tail light is out. And then some stuff that kept echoing in my head for some reason. And some stuff happened, maybe like a week later, and like I was trying to find like the connection between them. And I finally did. So this one is also coming out in Midway Journal, whenever that is being published. It's called Ryan Tells Me a Taillight is Out. 1. When crime is embroidered on your skin at birth, one must take precaution. Say I love you each time you step out, because stepping in again isn't a basic human right. Shame, shame. Sometimes simple fixes cost more than one black man's life. The mechanics of this baffle me still. 2. My uncle pulled into the driveway, strobing red and blue not far behind, and I saw the world implode again. Busted taillights and death sentences are the same when your skin's brown. Driving while pouring black, a dangerous game indeed. 15 miles from city to city, brought in the hound, blocked off the street. 3. I believe in possibility. We could have been an outraged march on Hartford's crumbling roads. Fear inherited from a black history is black history. Shame. Shame. Thank you guys. And then this last one is definitely a little bit lighter. No, I feel like I kind of sped through these. Thought these would go a little bit longer. But this one is a little bit lighter. I went to go hang out with that same friend who had told me that a taillight is out. And I stopped at Barnes and Noble and went to the Starbucks in there, and there was a sign, and it was like advertising a signing for like a local author for a book. And so I wrote that after that because it stayed with me all day. And I like literally like went home and like wrote a version of this poem. This is not that version, but I wrote a version of this poem. It's called A Signing with Esther. The flyer shouts as the barista asks what cologne I'm wearing. The scent wafts up memories of her father, but voyage is cheap and I am frugal. The barista hands me my cookie, blends and pours my drink, the one with the Italian name I cannot at this point remember. My name is not asked, not written on plastic. We are alone until she returns from break, asks if I have been helped. I say yes, look at the poster to the right of her, double take, realize she is Esther, subdued and apron clad and working humbly to support our shared dream of a writer's life. I don't yet know what that looks like, but Esther stays with me in my pocket all day, a memento of togetherness, a beacon of favor. Thanks,
That was
guys.
wonderful. Oh, I gotta say that the poem about Ryan tells me your taillight is out. It's so powerful. Just an amazing, amazing poem. So
Thank you, guys.
and I have to get a copy of your collection. It's out now, correct?
It is, yeah.
Great, wonderful. Wow, this was an amazing evening, you guys. And we're ending on time, Lucy.
Hard to believe.
Oh boy. Well, we will be posting this on the Ridgefield Library YouTube channel. So it usually takes about a week or a week and a half or so to get it up. So if you know anyone who would like to hear the poems from this evening, please forward the information to them. And I hope you can join us next month for poems from Connecticut's Four Corners. And if you can make it to Ridgefield next Tuesday evening, we'd love to see you for the showcase of Poets Laureate from Southwestern Connecticut. So thank you as always, Lucy Hanley from Ridgefield Library, and thank you, Ridgefield Library. And thank you, poets. And anything else, Lucy, at all that you want to add?
Thank you so much, Barb, dear.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you, poets.
Thank you.